First note, this episode of In Goal Radio, the podcast, features an interview that is my favorite of all the episodes that we've published so far. It's not the biggest name, does not have the most awards or the most games played in the National Hockey League, but it is honest, it is truthful, and there's a difference between those two words, and it is raw and emotional and fun, and that's the best part. I'm Darren Millard. Welcome to In Goal Radio, the podcast presented by The Hockey Shop, source for sports Surrey, thehockeyshop.com. I am on Prince Edward Island in a parking lot right now as I get ready to catch my flight back home. And on the other side of the country is co-founder of In Goal magazine, David Hutchison, on Vancouver Island. We have the country covered right now.
From island to island. And I think
island to island.
You being in a parking lot is a nice theme for this episode because the feature interview Kevin recorded from his car and in his car sitting there with our guest. And I have to agree with you, Darren. My favorite interview of what is now and this is episode 26, our 6th month history at the podcast.
And what made Eric Comrie so appealing to you?
He's just an incredibly engaging young man, and you can hear it in his voice. And I think he's sharing things that a lot of folks would probably be a little bit reluctant to share. I mean, being able to tell us that, yeah, he skated out on the ice in Montreal in the World Juniors, and he was nervous. And for him to say that getting these one-game call-ups to the NHL puts a whole lot of pressure on him, that's honest. Love to hear those things. And he's, like I said, he's just so genuine and full of life. We've been really lucky to meet him a few times. I mean, Kevin knows him quite well, but I've been lucky to meet him a few times up in Kelowna when he's training there. And I mean, just a small story. We got to spend, 10, 15 minutes after a practice one day hanging out in the dressing room and chatting. And I was there with our son, Matty. And then a year later, we walked into the dressing room again after a session. He didn't even know we were coming. And he walked right up to Matty and said, "Hey, Matty, how you doing? Good to see you again." He hadn't seen him in a year. He met him for 15 minutes. He's got to meet thousands of people. And there he remembers an 11-year-old kid and his name right away. For me, that sort of sold me as a parent, obviously. But that's genuine. That's who he is. Mm-hmm. And I think it really comes through in the interview.
And he also comes from a very famous background, both in Canadian business and with his father and the brick furniture company which he founded, and the brick hockey tournament which Woody gets into, a story that I didn't realize how that tournament came about, but Eric either. Kind of spilled the beans on that. But his older brothers, Paul, who are quite a bit older, Paul and Mike, both play in the National Hockey League. So he wasn't one of these kids that struggled for means and putting his 2 cents together to get equipment. He had a more lavish upbringing, and he still went through the ups and downs of trying to make it to an elite level. So a different sort of approach to growing up and being in the minor hockey system in 2 different countries, both in Canada, Alberta, and Edmonton, and then in Southern California. So a really interesting conversation, and how he went about it. Like this is a kid that I don't want to steal all of Woody's thunder, who's in Kelowna doing these interviews and attending these camps, but how Eric had to really, well, he didn't have to scratch and claw to financially take part in the game. He had to get creative in how to find his ice time.
Well, yeah, and that the 2 things about that stand out for me is, sure, he had access to lots of opportunity growing up, but here's a kid who basically willed himself to becoming a great goaltender. You hear the stories about the time that he's put in, not because dad's pushing him to put it in, but because he absolutely loves the game. He is a rink rat at heart. And when you hear in the interview some of the things that he did growing up to become a goaltender, just really impressive. We would all be impressed by a kid who does this. And it's, like I said, it's not apparent driving this to happen. It's his own passion for the game. And the other story I'll just share is, as you're talking about his upbringing, is you would never know it to meet Eric. Kevin was telling me a story about Eddie Lack going down to California to train with Eric. Eric just invited him to come and spend a little time at his house and skate a bit together. And Eddie arrived at the airport, and he, honest to God, was expecting somebody to roll up in an old Toyota Camry to pick him up, because he just figured Eric was another kid who played hockey. Despite all the time that they'd spent together in the summers training already, he'd known him for a long time, and he had no clue that what he was about to get into. And I won't get into all the details, but he just had no idea. And that tells you a lot about Eric as a person too.
We could talk about this interview forever, but we want to make sure that you get a chance to listen to it. The listeners of In Goal Radio, the podcast presented by The Hockey Shop, a source for sports story, thehockeyshop.com. Before we get into that, the gear segment, it falls on your shoulders this week. What are you going to be talking about after the interview? And then I would just want to touch on The Hockey Shop and their great service.
Kevin and Cam, as you know, have been doing all of our gear segments more or less up until now, and we just decided to change it up a little bit this week because over at ingoalmag.com, we released our review of the new CCM Jetspeed FT2 skate. Do head over there. You'll get some different insights. You'll get some different views, both in terms of both video and images. Kevin's feedback, and I say Kevin's feedback because it's a full custom skate that we ordered, so he's the only one who's able to go out and take it for a spin, although we have had the opportunity to talk to a number of guys in the NHL who've used the custom CCM skates as well and added their opinions to the review. Anyway, having released that this week, we thought it'd be interesting to hear right from the source, and we spoke to Frederic Beaunoyer and Kaylie Dankevy at CCM. Frederic is the head of the skate department for CCM. And so he's the guy who is in charge of the innovation, in charge of the development of new product for skates. And this really was the biggest leap in skate technology for CCM. And we wanted to hear from them because really this is not, folks, just CCM's version of a cowlingless skate. There's a lot of new technology behind this that is unique to CCM. And so we wanted to talk about not just what that technology is, but wanted to hear a bit about the process. How long does it take to develop a skate like this? How many people are behind that effort? What sort of people are behind that effort? What's going on? It's pretty fascinating to hear when we learned a bit about it on our visits to CCM and wanted to be able to bring that to our listeners.
The gear segment discusses CCM and its wheels, so which is a perfect segue into our feature interview this week. Listen for it and how Eric Comrie discusses the lengths that he would go to get the training that he yearned for as he came up through the ranks as a minor hockey player. And I dare say it is one of the most unique approaches you will ever hear from a professional athlete. Eric Comrie, goaltender with the Winnipeg Jets and the Manitob Moose, in conversation with Kevin Woodley on In Goal Radio, the podcast, presented by thehockeyshop.com.
We've just finished a nice round of golf. Thanks to Golf BC, the Quail Golf Course up here in the beautiful Okanagan, the Okanagan Golf Club. Eric just absolutely crushes the ball. So we're going to talk about hockey rather than how badly he crushed me at the game of golf. How's it going?
It's going really good. Just getting a good round of golf. Had a lot of fun. Cole Killer and yourself was a lot of fun.
Now, you're up here for a week getting a little skate. Walk me through the off-season routine of a young professional goaltender. When you get back on the ice, what your schedule is in the gym, what does it look like?
So it's definitely changed a little bit since I became a pro. Back when I was in junior, I would not take much time off the ice. I pretty much started skating right away. Since maybe last summer, I started working with Adam Francilia, my new trainer, and he's really dialed me back on the ice a lot, really making sure that I was really focusing on my off-ice stuff and just getting stronger in the gym so that when I went on the ice, I could achieve what I wanted to. So this summer's been a lot of off-ice stuff, a lot of getting stronger, a lot of building muscle, a lot of getting my core tight enough where I can get back on the ice and improve right away instead of kind of ease myself back onto the ice. So first time on the ice was just in late June, early July, really, for myself.
And normally, when have you been back on in the past?
I've done as short as a week or two.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So definitely not what my trainer, Adam Franzolita, really wanted at all.
Okay, so we're up in Kelowna. So you're up here seeing Fran, who a lot of people might recognize. We've written articles about the work he does. The Net 360 group and the Net 360 camps are kind of where a lot of people might recognize that name from. But this isn't home. So home's in California. Home's in Newport Beach, right? So how are you getting nice in Newport? Like, how often are you able to skate down there when in the summers?
Well, actually, we're very blessed now. We used to have to drive a long way for a rink. We just built a brand new, beautiful facility. The Ducks built a brand new facility. It's amazing. And it's 15 minutes from my house. It's got 4 sheets and it's absolutely stunning. All the guys in California are so happy right now. We have a great pro skate right now. I rent ice also 2 days a week, just do an hour of just skating, not even seeing pucks.
So just working on your movement patterns, working on your skating, working on your footwork.
Just skating. I haven't touched a puck at all for my skating at all, like with my goalie coach in the summer. It's just been purely skating.
Do you think that would have surprised a lot of kids? Would it have surprised you if I told, say, 12 or 13-year-old Eric Comrie that, hey, guess what? The pros, they haven't seen a puck, and it's July 15th right now, and they're out there skating twice a week. Would that have surprised a young you?
You know what? Probably not, because when I grew up, like the way I became a goalie, like I was never very good for when I was younger until I got to 10 years old. And the way I got good is I worked with a goalie coach named James Jensen in California. And we wouldn't even go out for like a private lesson. We'd go out there during public skating. So there'd be figure skaters going out and all this stuff. And I would skate 3 days a week with him, just an hour of public skating. And it was just skating. We weren't allowed to bring pucks on the ice. And that's what we did 3 days a week. That's literally how I got better right there.
Okay, Jenner. So for those that don't know, James Jensen is now the goalie coach of the Everett Silvertips. You'd probably recognize one of his other pupils, Dustin Wolf, who was drafted this year as well. Working in California. So you're out there, like, are you in gear?
Yeah.
Are you making a crease? Are you doing crease movements in one end of the ice? Or the figure skaters like yelling at you to get out of the way? What's that like?
Well, Jenner was really good at spray painting lines too when he was younger, and we'd always work on the geometry. I'd make sure it was exact because I was a bit of a stickler for making everything exact, just kind of getting on his side a little bit. But then we would some days we'd get the crease and we'd always take advantage of that, and we would just skate for hour every single chance we got, just T pushes, crease movement, just different things. And he had me some days we do edges, and it was just all this different movement, crazy stuff. And I loved it. Like, I loved being on the ice, and it was just a lot of fun for me too, though.
Okay, so walk me through, like, when did you start in the game? Now, obviously, what were your influences, like family influences that got you into hockey? Like, what made you love first hockey, and then secondly, was it goal right away, or did you play out as well?
Well, hockey was a given for me. Had to be. I mean, Mike and Paul, my brothers, both played in the NHL. They both played a lot of hockey. It's all I saw. My dad probably wouldn't say, he would say he'd never force me to play hockey, but he wanted me to play hockey. That's just what he wanted to do. And
so older brother, obviously Mike Comrie.
Yeah.
And Paul.
Yeah.
Were you so many, you wouldn't believe how many NHL goalies started because they were the little brother that got put in net. Is that you?
So I am about 4 years old. Mike and Paul are both in the National Hockey League, and they're shooting on me inside a little gymnasium, like a mini hockey thing, using a foam puck. And then whenever I'm not playing in net, I'm wearing a Scott Stevens jersey, trying to block every single shot there is. So they're like, this guy's a goalie. He has to be a goalie. So they pretty much forced me into it. And every time I played out, I wanted to block every shot. So it was kind of a given that I was going to be a goalie.
Might as well put you in the big pads if you're going to get in the way of the hard black rubber.
And my brother Paul, my greatest save to this day is still stopping brother Paul. He told me in the gym, he was playing in the National Hockey League at the time. He had a concussion, so he wasn't in the lineup. And he goes, you will never, ever stop me with a puck. And I was about 5 years old. And he just so happened to get a backdoor pass, and I make an unbelievable glove save. And my brother Mike picked me up and carried me around the house, and Paul was dejected, went on the floor, and I still think that might be the reason why I became a goalie right there, that moment.
That save. All it takes is one save.
It's one save. It's all it need.
So other than the save, what about, like, what other influences were you were you a gear? We got a lot of people that are gear geeks. They fall in love with, you and I have had conversations about the equipment, picked each other's brains on what works, what doesn't. Were you a gear geek growing up, or did that come later?
I was never a gear geek growing up. No, I was, when I turned 11, I became a gear guy. That's when I became it. When I was growing like young, I loved.
Just so you know, 11's pretty young.
Pretty young, but I was a goalie when I was like 7 years old.
Okay.
And I fell in love with Martin Brodeur. Like everything Marty Brodeur. I would cut my hair just like Marty Brodeur. I would do everything to emulate him as much as I could.
I've seen you with a mustache, and now that recently we saw pictures of that, that sort of bad stash that he had for the draft. I'm starting to see it here.
I think I should go back to that bad stash. Maybe the good luck will come there right there.
Okay, so you're a Marty Brodeur guy. I'll kick you out of the car if the answer isn't yes. Have you listened to the podcast with him from a couple of weeks ago? Oh, he's in trouble.
I know.
It's raining out there. You need to listen to it.
I need to listen to it.
So what'd you love about Marty? Because, I got to admit, it's funny. It really was an enlightening podcast. He talked to us. I think a lot of us thought he played so much on instinct, but just how much he studied other goalies, certainly shooters, his own film. There was a lot of thought process into it. So as a young Eric Comrie, what were you emulating when Marty Brodeur was your guy?
I don't know. I think it was just him. I love the New Jersey Devils, first off. Like, I don't know why. I love Scott Stevens. I loved Marty Brodeur. And
where did that come from?
I don't know where it came from. And to be honest with you, every time growing up in Edmonton, every time Marty Brodeur came to Edmonton, he'd get lit up. My brother would score 2 goals on him. I think one score was like 8-1. And I was like, I was sad that my brother scored 2 goals and he scored on my hero. So it was kind of strange. And just, I don't know what it was about him. He was the best back then. That's who I thought was the best when he played. I mean, he won Stanley Cups. He did everything he wanted a goalie to do. And that's played the puck extremely well, won games. Doesn't matter if he had 20 shots or 30 shots. He's going to win the game. Doesn't matter how he's going to get it done.
Now, see, that's in Edmonton. Walk me through, for those who don't know, the transition from Edmonton growing up as a young guy to California and how that move played a role. You mentioned Jenner, and I mean, it would have been just a completely different environment in terms of access to hockey, the focus on hockey, going from, quote unquote Canada and a hockey mad city like Edmonton, to California, to Newport Beach, where hockey's, I mean, I've seen it, it's popular, but we're not talking about Edmonton.
No, I mean, I remember, growing up in Edmonton, I played a lot of hockey, but I was never that good, just young guy. And then moving to California, I was always scared of, maybe I won't be able to play hockey. Maybe I won't be able to play. Like, no one plays here. But making the move there, I went to like this house league there, just a house league. And my dad thought, he's going to be pretty good. He played in Edmonton, so he's probably going to be like the best player. So he tried to move him up. I think I let in 15 goals my first game. So it wasn't.
California kids can play.
So then he goes, maybe hockey's pretty good down here. Like, it's pretty good. And then I remember I wanted to make the brick team really badly because that's a big tournament. I mean, my dad started that tournament.
Your dad owned the brick.
By the way, he started that tournament for my brother Mike, if anybody's wondering.
Is that the true story?
Yeah, this true story goes, he started that tournament because Mike was so much better than everyone else at his age group. Like, he was so much better than everybody else in Edmonton that my dad really wanted to see. He goes, is he really that good? So he tried to get all the best kids his age in, and he turns out Mike was that good.
So that's how the brick tournament
started. It was for Mike. That's why the brick tournament wasn't around from brother Paul, who was a great player, but I guess Mike was just so dominant.
Wow.
So then story goes, I'm in California playing the house league, but I want to make the brick team. And I think my dad wants me to make the brick team too because it's his tournament.
It's a big deal.
Big deal for him. So
it's a big deal for everyone. Still, the brick team's a big deal.
Huge deal. I think it's the best tournament you can play as a young kid by far. It's the most fun I've ever had. Maybe playing hockey to this day still. And he wants me to make the brick team, so he meet his goalie coach, James Jensen, who's going to be the goalie coach of the brick team. He goes, okay, why don't we start working with him so maybe he can have a chance? And it's not looking good. I'm not a very good goalie. So we start skating 3 days a week on just the straight movement stuff.
This is the public skating.
That's all we did was just the public skating, just to build a foundation. And I think in going in Edmonton, I don't know if I would have had that opportunity because there's so many kids playing hockey that it's kind of like you got to run them through one after another.
Everything's structured. You never would have had that opportunity to just go out and skate.
No, I would never had that chance to go out and skate with just a goalie coach, just me and him for an hour every single day. Like, and I skated a lot as a kid. I skated 6 to 7 days a week. A
Wow.
lot. Like, and Jenner we'd skate it every single day. And then slowly I started getting technique. I started getting better and better and better. I made the brick team. I didn't play much. I maybe played 1 or 2 games of the tournament. I wasn't a starter by any means. I was okay at the tournament. But I continued the process because I started getting better and better. Even the goalie in the team started noticing getting better. But I went to a different team because I wanted to be the starter. And this other guy was
Right.
going to be the starter.
Right.
So I went to the Wave and kept going and going. And I developed slowly through James Jensen skating.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So at what point in all this, I mean, like you said, you've been around the NHL
Yeah.
with your brothers. You know what it's like. At what point did like you said, back up on the brick team? At what point did it become something where you're like, hey, this is something I could do. I can be good enough to play this. Was it going to junior? Like, when did that become something that you thought about?
Well, my dad always says this to me. He goes, people always asked him when he thought Mike was going to play in the NHL. And he said, I thought Mike was going to play in the NHL the first day he stepped in the NHL because you never know what's going to happen along the ride. And I kind of hold that true to myself. I didn't know if I was ever going to be good enough to play in the NHL until my first game. And you just don't know. So many different things can happen. So many different things can go around. You can get an injury. But it was a long road getting there. I mean, I remember from the time I was 11 years old to the time I was 16 years old, I skated 7 days a week, 2 to 3 hours every single day.
All skating.
No.
So now you're
pucks,
progressing. You're adding pucks. Okay.
Yeah, but that's also just practices, including practices or private sessions and just all these different things. Because California, there's always just different camps going on. We would always just there because there's a bunch of retired hockey players love living in the sun in California.
Right. Not a bad place to live.
No. So they would always run these private lessons, and it was Rick Kelly. And it wasn't goalie lessons. It was just shooters going around the net shooting pucks, and I'd face, I don't know, 1,000 pucks an hour just because it was so many shots. And I'd do it 3 days a week. Then I had 2 days with Jenner and just tons and tons of skating. I remember I was at the rink. Well, I became friends with everyone at the rink because I was there every day.
Wow. So this is just, it's not goalie specific all the time. Sometimes it is. This is just you basically becoming a rink rat and taking an opportunity to get as many shots, as many pucks, as many touches and times on the 100%. Ice as possible.
And it was never my dad ever forced me to go to the rink. I loved going. I still to this day, I love going to the rink. If I ever got in trouble, I didn't know I was in really big trouble for my dad until he threatened to take away hockey. And then right away, I would be like the most perfect human being because I did not want hockey taken away from me. It's the thing I love the most. And to this day, I still love it the most. People ask me, why do I go on the ice so early? It's not because I'm trying to show off or anything. It's just because I love being on there. I love skating. I can skate around the MTS Center and just imagine playing there all the time. It's just because I love being out there.
Wow. Okay. So we'll take the next step. So you go from California back up at the brick, you progress your way up. How do you end up in the WHL?
Ooh, WHL, that was still to this day the hardest decision of my life I had to make, I think.
Okay. And what were the options?
I was either going to probably go to Denver University.
Okay.
My brother went there. Both my older brothers went to college. Mike and Paul were both NCAA players. Mike left NCAA to go to Kootenay at the end.
That's right. He was the first one to sort of open that loophole, if I remember
That
correctly.
was a loophole. That he would have stayed. He loved Michigan. He would have stayed there forever. But there was a contract loophole that he could take advantage of, and he put up 83 points in 30 games in the Western Hockey League. And he took advantage of it.
Not a big deal.
Yeah. And then, so for myself, it was between Denver or Tri-City. And I was pretty good at that point. I was a good goalie. I was drafted the first round in the Western Hockey League, and I had a really good 15-year-old year of hockey. And my dad says, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Well, my idol now switched to Carey Price, and he was drafted by Tri-City. He played in Tri-City, and that was going to be a hard one for me to say no to." And just talking to my goalie coaches and my dad, it was just the amount of games I was going to see in college versus the amount of games I was going to see in the Western League was just not the same. Like college, I would have seen, if you're lucky, you maybe see 7 games as a freshman. And if you're unbelievably good, you play 20.
Right.
And I was going to get that in the first 2 months of the Western Hockey League.
So it's just about ice.
It was just about ice
wanting
time.
to be out there.
It just wanted to be out there, wanting to play games. Tri-City seemed like the right fit for me. I love this being there. I still love it to this day. That organization was amazing, and I think I made the right decision in my mind to where I went.
Okay, so he had some good years there. Now, your draft year, you decide. This is about roughly when I met you too, actually. I think it was probably a Western Hockey League, one of those Summit Series games where the Russians came through town.
Yeah.
Might have been you and LB even.
It was myself and LB.
That's right, Laurent Brossois.
Actually, yeah,
I remember that.
We have a good story actually there.
Let's tell it. Let's hear it.
So I've never met LB before, and LB is notoriously a little bit running late always. I hear now. I didn't know back then. So before the second Subway Series game, we forget to set an alarm, and
both
of us forget to set an alarm. So it's my fault too. We forget to set an alarm. We sleep, we nap right past the bus time. We show up to the game about an hour before the game, sweating before we play the Russians on live TV sports. And we never play on live TV in the Western League, really. This is like my first time ever playing on live TV.
Was that the one at the Coliseum?
This is not the one in the Coliseum.
Okay, that was later.
LB played amazing that game in the Coliseum. This is the one in Kelowna. No, sorry, in Victoria.
That makes sense.
In Victoria. Okay. And I actually ended up going in that game halfway through the game. I did not think I was going in. The coach said he'll try to get me in maybe. I was 17 years old, and I ended up playing pretty well that game actually, just off strictly adrenaline. That was strictly adrenaline.
Because you guys barely made it to the ring.
It's funny, like you get that emotional high after kind of being a little bit late, and you're like, oh man, I better do something to fix that now.
Yeah, it's like getting pulled over. You get that, like when you're speeding, you get that little rush. And it's not
rush.
A good thing, you did bad, but it's sort of the adrenaline spikes.
Yeah.
Okay, so draft year, the year before your draft year, you decide probably could have played through the hips, decided, obviously ends up being the right decision, but how tough was that? Like, was there any inclination? You decided to have surgery on both hips.
Yeah.
We know now that this is, it's almost a boutique surgery. And not that it's a minor surgery, it's still a major procedure, but was there any thought to let's just play through this, get drafted, and then get it taken care of? Or was it just, doesn't matter, I'm going to come out on the other side of this and teams should know that?
Yeah, it was a tough one for me. I remember I actually played really well right after the Subway Series. I played 2 games against Kelowna Rockets at home, and I played really well. But my hips were not feeling good at the time, and I was really in a lot of pain. And I remember going out to practices, and before practices, I'd have to go on the ice and pop my hips just to be able to go down the ice. I could not go drop in my butterfly if my hip did not pop in the right way that day.
Ugh. So that doesn't sound like much fun, especially for a guy who's on the ice as much as you.
So it was kind of I was like, this is not exactly what I want to go through every single day to play hockey. This isn't fun. It's not fun when you have to go on the ice, and if your hip doesn't pop correctly, you're in a lot of pain with everything you're doing.
So you get them cleaned up. Did you have it? Was it Philippon in
Mark
Colorado?
Philippon, yeah. He went to Philippon and Vale, and he did an amazing job. And I was rehabbing, I think, 4 to 6 hours every single day just to get over this what I had done. And not many people went through the surgery I've gone through. I had one hip done, and then a week later had another one done. And it was the first time they've ever seen it. I went from my hip surgery, and I walked in to get my second surgery. And they said they've never, ever seen anyone walking 5 days after their surgery.
So obviously it went really well.
It went really...
Pretty good decision long term.
I had an amazing rehab thing set up where I was in the pool the next day after my hip surgery, doing stuff the very next day. And I was doing a quarter squat 4 days after I had my hip surgery.
Wow. So obviously no regrets, but was it tough to make that? Especially ultimately you want to get fixed, but did you worry at all about draft or how that might affect your draft position? You end up going to the Winnipeg Jets, but
you're worried, but I had a good year that year. I posted a pretty good year. I was trending in the right direction. I had a good Subway Series game. Missing the prospect game sucks because I was really looking forward to that because
just the experience, Don Cherry, absolutely.
That's still to this day. Probably one of the biggest things I miss is that prospect game would have been a lot of fun. I did meet Don Cherry later in life, so I'm happy about that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Check that box.
Check that box. I was really happy with that. Really thrilled about meeting him. And then I remember I went to hockey camp. I came back in time for Hockey Canada goalie camp, and it was my second week skating. And I remember I had a really, really good camp. And I was kind of out of the blue. Like wasn't sure I was going to do. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it, but I had a really good camp. And it just so happened that Wade Flaherty, the Jets guy, was scouting that camp.
Right, Wade Flaherty, the goalie coach of the Winnipeg Jets.
He to this day he says that's
why
I was drafted by the Winnipeg Jets was that camp pretty much. And then
you're first basically just getting back on the ice and right into that camp.
And I'm still, I mean, I'm the happiest fan in the world the Jets chose, man. Couldn't have gone to a better organization and better people. Like I've loved every single minute of that organization too.
Okay, so what's the jump? Now you move from now. Actually, we probably shouldn't just gloss over the World Juniors. Had a chance to represent little under the pressure and spotlight of Canada in Canada. Wearing the Maple Leaf.
Yeah.
End up winning a gold medal with Zach Fucali, I believe. You guys were partners.
Yeah, Zach and I have we are very good with Hockey Canada. We have a gold medal at the Ivan Olinka.
Right.
U18.
Right. My apologies for not having that in
and
early.
we have a gold medal at World Juniors. So we're 2 for 2 for gold medals with Hockey Canada, him and I. And we have a friendship that still to this day is really close. We're really good friends. We talk a lot. I mean, representing Canada World Juniors, I said that my favorite hockey memory might be Soft Brother Paul in the gym. I think World Juniors might top that. That was
especially at home.
At home. I played against Germany. Shutting out Germany was awesome, and then playing against the USA on New Year's Eve was still. You can't ask for more than that. Like playing in Montreal New Year's Eve, you think you're nervous for a game. That's a whole different thing right there. That's just. And I remember Freddie telling me one thing that I kind of played with, and I played pretty well, was go out there and pretend you're playing like pond hockey or just backdoor hockey. Don't even worry about the pressure. Just go out there like to play the game you love and play it like you're playing with your friends backdoor. And I think I took that to heart, and I used that a lot. And I honestly just tried to go out there and play like I was playing with my friends.
And that Freddie being Freddie Brathwaite, who was the goaltending coach, the goaltending consultant with Hockey Canada back then, still does some work with them. Okay, so from there, pro. American Hockey League start.
Pro American Hockey League.
Is that the biggest jump? Like I've had guys say, I've had some guys say WHL to AHL is a bigger jump than AHL to NHL.
I agree with that. The biggest jump I've made in hockey career is definitely still midget to Western League.
Okay, yeah.
Doesn't matter what anyone says to me. When you go from living at home to living on your own, that's the biggest jump you'll make in your career. My 16-year-old year is a year that I struggled the most out of any year in my career.
And that was mostly off ice.
Just off ice. I mean, this is the first time you feel that you're part of a business and not just playing for fun. Western League, I know it's not getting paid, but you have coaches that are trying not to get fired. You have GMs that are trying not to get fired.
It's a different layer of pressure.
It's a different layer of pressure. You have people paying for your tickets. When you're playing at midget hockey, you have nothing. You're just playing in front of your parents. There might be a scout in the building. There might not be. You don't know. And no one's paying for it. No one's paying. It's all for fun. The coach is not going to get fired. He's going to come back the next year.
Okay, so how did you? Clearly, you I don't want to say felt, but you were aware that everything changed. Did you feel that as pressure? How did you manage to deal with it?
I felt for sure the pressure, and I was a first-round draft pick. I was supposed to come in there and play right away and be unbelievable right away, and I wasn't. I wasn't ready for that jump right away. It was definitely a slower.
Well, not a lot of guys make it at that age.
Not a lot of people make it at 16. I needed a year to get ready. I was a young 16-year-old. I had never been away from home for a long time. I just wasn't ready for that. And then moving away from home, I had a great billet family, and they treated me great. I had a great roommate, Adam Huseman. I'm still really good friends with him. It was a big jump. And it's hard to explain what it's like to move away at 16. A lot of people have done it, but it's a big thing. And it's not as easy as people think. I was homesick. I wanted to be home at a lot of time. And even the game, I was frustrated with how I was playing. I wanted to do better. And I never cleared my mind and just said, go out there and have fun and play hockey.
How'd you get back to that?
I think the next year, I just came in more confidently. I came in and I just said, okay, just go back to playing my game and going out and just doing what you know how to do.
you managed to clear mentally
Clear-
all that other stuff?
Clear mentally the other stuff and the pressure and all that stuff just kind of went away after. I had to get used to it. I had to get used to living away from home. It takes a year to get used to that stuff. And I think just being a year older, being used to where I was going to go and just knowing I was going to face was a big advantage for me.
Okay, so from there to pro, you've lived on your own. So the lifestyle, you've still got a billet family in the WHL. Is moving into pro, is that another step in terms of living on your own, a bigger step? What's the biggest difference there? Is it the shooters? Is it the off ice? What's the biggest jump into pro?
My first game in the American Hockey League, I was 18 years old. Not a lot of goalies played 18. I was not.
So this was the end of a WHL
end of the
season?
Western Hockey League
So
season.
you went up for a little bit.
I went up, and I had a really, really good 18-year-old year in the Western Hockey League. A really solid year. Like I posted, still to this day, I still call it the best year I've ever had. And it was the year after my hip surgery. I had a great year. I was really happy with how everything went that year. I go to the American Hockey League, coming off a great year. I am as confident as I could ever be. I just got done. I lost to Kelowna Rockets in a series, but I was lights out all series long. I played amazingly well.
Feeling good.
Feeling really good. And I went up there and played a game, and I was blown away. I was blown out of the water. I couldn't make a save. To the point where I was like, oh my goodness. I told my goalie coach at the time, Lyle Mast, I was like, Lyle, I don't know if I can play in the American Hockey League. Like, I don't know if I will ever be able to play in this league. And he was like, no, you're just 18 years old. You have to get used to the speed. Like, don't worry, you're gonna be fine. I was like, I don't know, Lyle. I don't know if I can do it. This is an exact conversation we had. And eventually I got over it.
I was gonna say you've been an American Hockey League All-Star now, so yeah.
So then the next year I went up again at the end of my season. But it was kind of like my 16-year-old year. Like it was like my 18-year-old when I played as an 18-year-old. It was kind of like my 16-year-old year in the Western League. I was just moving away from home, but wasn't ready. Then when I was 19, I go up there and I play again. I play one game, and you know what? 2 pucks hit the crossbar that probably should have went in, but they didn't go in. And that right there changed everything for me because I got my confidence. The next game, I'm first star. The next game, I'm second star. The next game, I'm first star. So I played 3 games. I'm 2-1. And that right there made a huge difference for me because I go from 19-year-old. They didn't make the playoffs that year. I actually should go back. 18-year-old year, I'm up in the American League all year because they go all the way to the finals.
Oh, so you stayed up through the playoffs.
Stayed up through the playoffs. So I see practice after practice of American League shooters, which made a big difference for me going there the next year as a 19-year-old. And then I got those 3 games in, 2 wins, 1 loss. Their season's over. They missed playoffs. I go back. Then the next year, I know I'm going to make they told me, like, you're going to make the American League team. Like, don't worry about where you go. You're going to be on the team. I come back the next year just confident because I went 2-1, and I start off amazingly my American League year as a 20-year-old. I start off as well as I could have started off. Also, at that year, 20-year-old, I got really lucky. Not lucky, but like maybe a fortunate bounce. Like I was slated to play behind Connor Hellebuck all year. But he's the goalie. Pavlik actually sustains an MCL strain.
So Helly ends up in Winnipeg, you get a chance to play.
And as a 20-year-old in the American Hockey League, I ended up playing at one point 20 straight games, which is crazy.
Doesn't happen a lot.
Never happens. That never, as a 20-year-old, it was still to this day that one of the biggest experiences I could have had is going up there and playing that many games. It was amazing for my development.
Now, what you also had a stint at the World Championships, the Hockey Canada. You got a chance to do that. Now, so what you didn't play. You were there because you were young at the time.
Yeah.
There is the third goalie, but again, on the ice with some of the best in practice, facing guys like now Stanley Cup champion. I remember we had this conversation. Ryan O'Reilly with that little crazy toe hook, and that crazy release. You're not the first guy that's been eaten up by that thing.
No, yeah.
Where did that experience fit in terms of again getting comfortable with the next step and what the next step looks like?
Well, I remember going there. I was just so thrilled to be part of that team. There weren't a lot of guys options that year. A lot of guys didn't want to go. And I was just lucky enough where I got the call. I was like, okay. And I remember it being the Olympic year, so they didn't know who they could bring to the Olympics because of the whole thing. So they thought maybe they could bring American League goalies. and I had pretty good back-to-back American League years. So they were like, okay, maybe we could bring him in. So I went there kind of as a third guy just to learn and watch and just kind of see. And I had so much fun. I remember going there, and I still am friends with a lot of guys on that team. I had so much fun there. I practices, I was out there early with the guys, taking Pickard and Johnson were definitely trying to, the Chad Johnson were the guys trying to get ready for the game. So I was just out there waiting. He'll start a practice, I go out there and face breakaways. And the end of practice, I go out there and just
Face
breakaways. And I loved it. I just love being out there with all the guys. Are unbelievable players. The team was fantastic, and we had a good team. And unfortunately, I came super close to winning a world championship gold medal. And it would have been one of the coolest things to have is a gold medal world championship, because I would be part of a kind of a cool club of a Ivan Olinka World Junior and World Championship gold medal, which would have been really, really cool. It's still a dream of mine to be able to do that. I don't know, but you never know if it's going to happen again. And we lost in a shootout, unfortunately, in the last game to Henrik Lundqvist.
Yep, and I remember that Pick went toe-to-toe with him in that game. He was unbelievable.
He was incredible. I still, to this day, he is such a gamer. It is unbelievable. When the game gets on the line, you want to go to win a game. It's hard to choose another guy. Calvin Picker, when he needs to play well, he always plays well.
Okay, so where's the mindset now? You've been in the A for 4 years. Like I said, you've been an all-star. You've had good seasons. You played behind different level of teams and quality of teams there, with different expectations. That's the nature of being in the A. Like, where's the next step? You've got a couple tastes of the NHL. Like, where do you feel you're at, and how do you, like, what's the mental approach right now?
Well, for me, it's the same thing. I want to play in the National Hockey League. I played there before. It's my goal. It's 100% where I want to be.
So when you get up there, it always feels like every time you get up, it's like just one quick game.
Yes, it's one quick game.
Is it hard to handle the pressure of that when you know that's what it is? Like, do you find yourself putting too much on it?
100%. 100%. It's the same thing, and I'm trying to revert back to it. The same thing that Freddie Brath. I think so. Last year, I go up and I play against Minnesota. I don't play very well. I remember I just put a lot of pressure on myself. I put a ton of pressure on myself. And Flats always tells me, like, he goes, Eric, you can play. Like, I've seen you. You've done it in the American League. I see you in practice every day. You're fine. You can do this. And I just go out there and I put a ton of pressure on myself. But I think that's the way I am. And I think going back to Manitoba after that game, I kind of said, hey, I thought back to the thing that Freddie Brathwaite told me at the World Juniors. Just play it like you're playing with your buddies in a backyard rink. And I haven't done it for a long time. And I went out and played an amazing game against Grand Rapids. And I played a great game against Chicago the next night. And I'm like, maybe you just got to take a little bit of a step back, take a little pressure off you, and just go out there and play it and just let the results take care of themselves and just go out there and enjoy what you're doing instead of going out there and trying to be perfect all the time. Like, I have a tendency, I'm a bit of a perfectionist with my game.
I've seen this I've seen this on the ice and drills. When pucks go in, you don't get too happy.
No, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Like, I want, even if I get scored on, even if I don't get scored on, and I didn't like the way I stopped, I didn't like the way I tracked the puck into my body, I didn't like the way I was set up, I still will not like it. Like, even in practice, if I give up, just say I'm in position, I make a save and it hits me, but I didn't like the way I tracked it, I'm still critiquing myself. I'm critiquing myself. Yeah.
You know that it wasn't.
So I'm always hard on myself. I'm trying to get rid of that and just try to enjoy more. Still be hard on myself, because that's what makes me who I am. That's what makes me practice. That's what makes me go hard in the drills. But I'm trying to get to the point where I'm just letting go and letting it happen on the ice instead of making it happen.
That sounds like pretty good advice. Now, do you work with anyone to try and get there? Or is this just all yourself?
I've read a lot of books about it, like just trying to do it. Honestly, it's funny to say, but it's about trying to find some alone time every single day and just trying to reflect on yourself and trying to, like, get almost into the zone where you're trying to play a hockey game in, like, every day, and just trying to almost in the zone where you're just letting things happen and not trying to control things. I have a very controlled of personality. That's the way I am. So it's hard for me to try to find time and just go, okay, completely relax and just be in the moment completely. And I try and find time to do that every single day.
Because you want to be in the moment when you're on the ice.
Well, you have to be. If you're not, you're constantly thinking about, like, I'll find myself, if I'm not playing well, if the guy comes down and shoots a high blocker, but he misses the net, but I didn't like the way I tracked it. That'll be in my mind a little bit running through the game. And it shouldn't be, but like it then I'm like, I kind of thinking about that. Like I got to fix that. I got to fix that. And I'm trying to fix things mid-game instead of just going out there
and playing
the game. And I've done it. Junior, I was really bad at it. I would do it. Like I would watch just say I watched Henrik Lundqvist in a game. I saw his glove positioning. I'd go out there and try and emulate in a game instead of doing it in practice. I'd go right out into a game and do it, which is asking for disaster.
Yeah.
But you could get away with it in junior. But now you go into pro, it's kind of like you got to just kind of let everything you've learned in practice take over and go out there and play. I did a better job of that this year in the American League for sure. I have to get to the point where I just completely let it go and just play and let it happen on the ice.
When you get up, too.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and easy to say. I mean, it's staying in the moment. One puck, one shot, one thing. Everyone says it.
Yeah.
Easiest thing to say. Sometimes it's the hardest thing.
It's the easiest thing to say for sure. It's hard to do that, and it's harder for people with a personality. I like to control things. That's the way I am. A kind of control freak. Everything set up the way I like it to. And then when you try and let go of that control, because you have to as a goalie, you're not in control of most things. You're mostly reacting to what's going on in front of you.
We don't get to dictate much of the game.
We're not dictating anything. We're reacting to what's in front of us. So when you try and control what's happening in front of you, it's not asking for a lot of success.
It sounds like pretty good advice, but again, easy to say.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a little experience to get there.
And I've talked to like a sports psychologist guy who said this. He goes, you will never. So the only way to get over that is to just go out there and experience it. You have to go get the experience. And it's hard to get that experience, but you have to go out there and just battle through the first steps and just get the experience and go say, okay, I've been there. I've done that. I can do that now. And you have to get to that point where you just say, okay, I've trusted the work I've put in. I've been there. I've been through it. I can do it now.
Do you feel like sometimes it's a matter of opportunity, right? Like
100%.
Kind of like you said, you got those 20 games while Helly was up and there was no, geez, I got one game here this week. I better make the most of it or I won't get another one. You just got to go out and play.
Yeah.
And those opportunities are a little tougher sometimes to come by in the NHL, but you feel like if you got one of those, there you go.
I mean, that's the goal. That's what I want. That's what I feel like. I feel like if I mean, I hate being like, I feel like it's cocky to talk about that, but I would love that.
Well, I'm asking, it's funny.
Yeah.
We talk about staying in the moment. I'm asking you to look at the future. So right there, you're supposed to tell me, no, I'm worried about one puck.
That's
one puck, one save,
and
one
that's
stop.
what you want to say. 100%. You do just want to stay in the moment. You want to stay in the moment and just let the things take care of themselves to get you on that path. It's so true.
Okay.
It's so true.
Best shooter you faced so far?
Best shooter I've faced so far.
Practice or games can be a teammate in a practice situation or in a game. Like you're up at camp.
Ooh, there's a lot of good shooters in the Jets. Wow.
I was gonna say that's kind of where I was going. What's that like in training camp?
Pretty good. He's got a pretty good shot. He scored a little goals to the NHL. He's an RFA right now. Patrick Laine. He's a pretty good shooter.
What's that shot like?
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's something special. He comes across, and it comes off his stick. And there's different type of shots. There's heavy shots and there's quick shots. His shot, I see it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I can stop that. And then it just gets on you really fast. You're like, whoa, that got on me a lot quicker than I thought it was going to get on me.
Is that just velocity?
I don't know. It's just the way he releases the puck. I mean, there's certain guys who have really hard, like 105-mile-per-hour slap shots that you can face.
Where's Buff on that scale?
Buff's got a heavy shot, like a hard shot. But I've seen guys like, his is also quick, but I've had guys who shoot heavy, like in the American League, stuff like that. But it's funny because you see it for a long way and it comes and hits you, but it kind of like, you're like, oh, it hurt me. It was hard, but I saw it the whole way.
Right.
And then there's shots where it's like, I never saw it. That got on me really quickly, but it didn't feel like anything. It just came quick, but it must have been hard. So there's two different releases. It's just got to be the way the guys release it. I'm not sure why that is, but I've come to realize that's one of the biggest things. His it gets on you so quick, and you don't have time to move it's a weird, different release.
Nice. So, but it benefit to facing those guys, whether it's when you're up in practice or training camp. Like, is that what
100%?
That's the ultimate goal, right?
100%. I try and face every single time Patrick Laine is shooting a puck. I try and be in the net in practice. Doesn't matter if he's taking one-timers or what he's doing. I try and be in the net. I've taken one tease from the slot where Flats told me, insane for taking those shots. And I'm like, I think that him taking those shots for him is just going to make me so much better. He's one of the best shooters in the NHL. If I can face that shot and be able to see it, react to it, and stop it, you can do that with anyone in the NHL. And so I try and face it as much as I can.
All right, Eric, man, I kept you way too long. We could probably keep going. We'll just save you for another day. Let you get back to California. A couple more days up here in Kelowna. Maybe another chance to kick my ass on the golf course before we're done. Then back to California, and then you're back here in Kelowna for the summer. You've switched agents. You're working with Ray Petco now, so you're part of the Net 360 camp with, as you mentioned, working with Adam Francilia, working with Dan Boss, working with Ray. So we'll get to see you again.
I'm really looking forward to it. I love my time in Kelowna.
It's not a bad place to be, is it?
I think I'm in the best places. Like California, Kelowna, Edmonton, it's all great. Winnipeg is fantastic too. I love all those cities.
I was going to say, like, the thing about Kelowna is the only time I've actually been up here in raining is when we're in the car doing this interview. So that's not a bad thing.
It's the only time it's ever rained is today.
There we go. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Eric.
I know we built that interview up, but tell me, you're listening to it, and was that not fascinating, cool, and engaging? And one of those ones where even though it's a podcast and you can pause it, you still sit in your car or you go around the block another time walking the dog to listen to the rest of the interview if you weren't finished it already. It just a fun, cool discussion with Eric Comrie and Kevin Woodley. Just your post thoughts, David.
Fascinating that we had not discussed this, you and I, together ahead of time, and yet we both, as we got on the line today, said that was the favorite interview we've had in the 6 months of In Goal Radio. So that tells you a whole lot. And think about it. We've had Carey Price. We've had Martin Brodeur, arguably the best today and the best of all time in many minds. We've had Roberto Luongo driving the streets of Vancouver in Kevin's car. Clint Malarchuk and his unbelievable story. Stefan Waite showing us around the Canadiens facility. I mean, we've had a lot of great guests on here in 6 months, and both of us thought that Eric Comrie was the most interesting interview, and for me, it really was. And I'm going to be listening to it again.
So is there anything that you grasp onto? Because part of what draws me and makes me speak so highly of Eric is that he's relatable. And that's not taking away from the other star guest, but Martin talked about taking things from Belfour's game or Hasek's game, and we all think that we would do that. But when Eric talked about playing in a game and being nervous, and 2 pucks go off the crossbar, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, I'm getting some breaks." Like that's me in a regular men's league game, or when I was playing midget hockey or whatever. Those little ones where you go, that could have easily gone in, didn't, and I turned this into a great. That's where a connection really occurred to me at that part of the interview.
Yeah, absolutely. And in many ways, he just sounds like another goaltender. He just happens to be playing at a different level. But, underline that with an unbelievable drive and passion for the game. To hear him say that he spent, 2 hours a day for 7 days a week for 5 straight years as a kid on the ice, not because dad pushed him there, but because he wanted to be there. In fact, they might take it away from him as a consequence. Wow. You can't teach that passion. You can teach a lot in goaltending, but you can't teach that drive and passion, and I loved hearing that.
What about the public skating story?
Well, exactly.
Going out there in his gear, not facing pucks, but sharing the ice with people twirling around as families or figure skaters or whoever, but just finding your little 12 feet of ice and doing the movements during a public skating session.
Yeah, and not just once.
In my life heard that.
Yeah, not just once, but over and over and over, and drawing a crease on the ice so you could find just a little slice to do your work, and that belief that skating drives everything. And he's even now, didn't he say they were just getting into working with pucks now, and he's been on the ice skating for a long time? Incredible. I once walked into a rink in Edmonton, and it was one of these rinks that has one of those small little ponds for teaching kids how to skate in between the 2 main sheets, and I saw a midget-age goaltender in there doing crease movement drills, and had to stop and have a chat with him. I don't know if he did it nearly as much as Comrie, but it's incredible when you see things like that. Or that little internet clip we saw a few years ago about a kid in the parking lot where there happened to be about 6 square feet of ice, and sliding around on it. Like, it just love stories like that. That's the heart of the game.
I'll be honest. If I showed up with my gear and went out and did crease movements at the public skate where I live in Markham, I don't know whether they'd let me on the ice. Like I really,
I don't
and I
either.
say that totally in all honesty. I don't know whether that would be allowed.
Well, and how many people would even have the courage to go and do it? I mean, it would be embarrassing to stand out like that for most people. But
But and I was thinking that too. Why would that be embarrassing? I would be very self-conscious. But then I'm also in the back of my mind going, why would I be self-conscious? The guy doing crossovers and listening to his iPod and doing skating around like in a different sort of casual skate and doing back twirls and all this kind of stuff. Like he should be self-conscious. Why? But he's not. So why can't I go out in gear and do my movements?
I don't know. We're not as strong as him.
No, you're right.
It would be fun if, and let's just get it in right now, at podcast@ingoalmag.com. If we got a few emails at our address for sending in questions and stuff, it would be fun to hear a few stories from people who have had the courage to step up at a public skate and do a little bit of crease movement.
Well, one final note. The one thing that I will carry around with me from the interview was Eric going on the ice early all the time at Bell MTS Place and skating around by himself and just thinking about playing a game. And he plays all the time there with the Manitob Moose. His home games are at that arena that they share with the Winnipeg Jets. But going around there and just being in that moment of an empty rink, and that's one of my fascinations, my little idiosyncrasy. That I love an empty rink, and I love the sound of my blades on the ice all alone in a rink, and that was cool that he thinks that way, and he does that in CCM gear, which is part of the gear segment this week that you are taking over for Woody. So I turn the gear segment over to Hutch, to you with failing hands. We pass the torch.
And before we do that, let's just remind everybody that this episode, as always, is sponsored by our friends at the Hockey Shop Source for Sports in Surrey, British Columbia. You've gotten to know Cam over the last few months in our weekly gear segments with Kevin. And like Cam, all the staff in their goal department are goaltenders. They play the position. They know and understand the position. They wear the gear that we wear. And they'll treat you like kings when you visit them in that place that Kevin calls a little slice of goalie heaven. And I have to agree. We've been down there. They've had the patience to work through set after set of gear with us to be sure that we get it right. Why don't you just try this? Why don't you just try that? They're not pushing anything on us. They're making sure that we've got the gear that's the right for our game, right for our needs. And you don't need to be in British Columbia to take advantage of that expertise. Their website is the place to go for all your gear needs, from the expert on ice reviews of the latest equipment to an unbelievable selection and prices. Especially, I should say, for both our Canadian and U.S. listeners. Those American dollars are going to go a long way in Canada these days. So check out the Hockey Shop Source for Sports at thehockeyshop.com today. And having shared that, let's just get into that gear segment where I sat down with two of the minds behind the goal department and the skate department at CCM to learn a lot more about what's behind the development of the new CCM Jetspeed FT2 skate. Here we are. One of the biggest goals of the In Goal podcast is to bring you inside the room, so to speak. We bring our listeners to some of the people that wouldn't normally connect with, like NHL goalies, NHL coaches, or in the case of today, the people behind the gear both NHL and amateurs love to wear. We're in so many ways in a gear-driven position, and that's what brought so many of us to play in goal. So today we're here with Beaunoyer and Kaylie Dankevy from CCM. Fred is the product manager for skates. Kaylie is the assistant product manager for goalie. And we've invited them to talk about the new Jetspeed FT2 skates, because last week we released our review at ingoalmag.com of the full custom version of the skate, and we thought it would be a good idea to bring the people behind the gear to our listeners. We've given our view, and now we want to hear from the people behind them. So this is really a huge step forward in skates for CCM, and what I think most listeners don't realize, it isn't just your version of a cowlingless skate. You've made some big innovations here ahead of some of the other companies. But first, Fred, I'm a guy who many years ago was sketching goalies in his notebook at school, masks and all sorts of things like that. I'm interested to know what brought you to your role at CCM. Were you like a whole bunch of other young Canadian and young Quebecers who were hockey obsessed? Were you dreaming of gear? What brought you to CCM?
Actually, that's a funny question because I was not exactly like you, but I grew up playing hockey. So from since I'm 6 years old, so now I'm 32. Just for the information, so I've been surrounded by hockey my whole life for the past 26 years. I've been for CCM for the past 2 years actually. So I had a bit of a 30 to when I reached 30 years old. I was not very happy with where I was, and I was like, when you heard everyone tell you if you find a job you don't feel like work you love, it's like you never work. So that was kind of my mindset at 30 years old. So there was an opening at CCM, and then I gave it my best, and I got the position. So I've been playing hockey since I'm 6 again. And I've always been surrounded by hockey in my life, and I love the sport. So this is why I ended up here.
Fantastic. It's actually not that different from my story. It's where InGoal got started about 10 years ago. So we've made a big step forward in these skates. I'd love to know, what's it look like to sit down and design the next generation of skate? Who are the people who are involved? I know you've got different teams at CCM. How many people are involved? Like, what's it look like? We can sort of imagine sketching out that new skate on a cocktail napkin. Obviously, There's a ton of technology involved, but where does it begin? What does it look like?
Exactly. So the skate is one of the most complicated component in your hockey gear. Actually, for a player, for a goalie, of course, you have all sort of other complex equipment. But for the player, it's always the most technical one. So developing a product is a 16 to 20 months process. So it's a very, very long process. And actually, it always starts with a brief. So as a product manager, you will brief your team of engineers, of designers. So we have three designers in our team. We have 4 developers, 1 product manager. So we're a team of about 10 people here working in the skates department. And the very first thing you need to do is you got to brief your team. You got to tell them what you need for your skates, how you want it to look, what features you want them to have, and then a designer is a designer. So he'll take what you said, and then he'll start to design the skate. But designing a skate is not only about the look of the skate. It's also a lot about the components. So how do you design the toe cap? How do you design an holder? So how do you design actually a skate that has no cowling? We've always built skates with cowling at CCM, and then in 2019 we're launching our very first skate without a cowling. So that's all the job of the designer. So it doesn't start on a napkin though. It does start on a computer, and then you gotta design all of the components of the skate. So not only the look of it. Look is only one part of it, but then you gotta design the tongue, you gotta build the tongue, and then the engineers, they gotta make that tongue come to life. So it starts with the design on the computer, and then the engineers, they gotta make it happen. So it's a very, very complex process. It's a very long one also. So you gotta test the product on the ice, you gotta test the product on lab, so you're sure that when you're putting the skate to the market, it's the best product that can be. So it's a very long process, and there's not a single step that is not being thought of for a long period of time.
I'm sure a lot of us have dreamed of building a pad or a glove or something in our garage or our basement over the years, but this is an incredibly advanced piece of technology, as you mentioned. Where does that brief come from? Are you getting feedback from just people internally? I know you've obviously got the pro reps out there talking to the pros. Product, obviously looking at other competitions' product. How do you put that together to know where you're going to take the next generation?
So the role of the product manager is to actually be the link of the feedback from the market to the design and engineering team. So the brief is made from, as you said, the pro comments that we're getting, the retail comments that we're getting. So any of the feedback we're getting, every single people that we're talking to about what needs to be done for a goalie skate. So what do you like for a goalie skate? So let's say, for an example, now we're in 2019, we're launching 3 mils runners, because that's what the market wants. They want 3 millimeters for their runner. Also, market didn't want a skate with a cowling, so we developed a skate with no cowling. So we have our new XSG holder. We got the quick release system on it, so you can now change your runner pretty easily, very, very quickly. So all of the specs that we're building, all of these innovations, they come from a request from the market. And the role of the product manager is to brief the team on what those market needs are, and then the designers and the development team, the engineers, they got to make it happen.
And then the factory for this is right there in Montreal. This is a whole process that's completed basically entirely in Montreal, isn't it?
Yeah, so we have our pro factory in Montreal. So every single pro skate that you see at pros, whether it's Sidney Crosby skates or Corey Crawford skates, they all come from the a factory near Montreal. So it's in a small suburb of Montreal. But we also use that factory to actually create prototypes and develop other products. So yes, this is where we build our pro skates, but we also use that factory to develop new engineering process, open new molds to develop new components, and we use it as an R&D center also.
So what's that R&D look like? I mean, how many prototypes would you go through between concept to final product, and how do you get feedback on the ice for how those prototypes are evolving?
Since it's a 16 to 20 months development period, of course you got to run through a lot of prototypes. So what's funny is that you can look into your old files and see what the very first prototype was, and then when you look at what the final product that you're putting on the market and you compare them, like there's a ton of differences for many reasons, because you test them on the ice and then you realize they're not solid enough. So you got to go back to the drawing boards and then you improve them, and then you make sure that the new prototype is actually holding the usage better. So it's a pretty long process, but everything is tested on the ice. Everything is tested in lab. Also, everything is focus grouped. So if you're hesitating, like, should we go with that design, that type of thing, then my role is to go and validate that also on the market. So you can call stores, you can call dealers that are influenced, you can go to Pee-wee tournaments and then show stuff to some kids and then get their feedback. So there's a lot of prototypes that are actually being done. So just the one-piece boot that we're having on this FT2 goalie skate, actually the very first time we launched a one-piece boot was for goalie and for players as well, was in 2016. But that one-piece boot actually took 5 years to develop. So it's a very, very long process of development. Same goes for the goalie holder. So we had to test it multiple times to make sure that we're providing the best quick release system on the market, so that blade lock technology, actually what holds the runner inside the holder, is actually a mechanic lock. So it's a very tight blade to holder connection. So all of those stuff were tested on the ice, were tested in lab, just to make sure that we're putting on the market the most optimized product. So of course you got lots of variation between the initial brief that I'm giving and to the final product on the shelves. Lots of development have been made between those two moments.
I can imagine the almost a Steve Jobs like scenario at Apple here, where you might have a bit of a push and pull between the designers in terms of the look of the skate versus the engineers in terms of the performance. And I mean, it's a beautiful skate. We first got to see it a couple of years ago in the middle of that process. Fascinating to hear what's going on. What's the turnaround time between feedback and then that next model in the development process? So you decide that you need to make a bit of a tweak to the holder, for example. How long before you can get a new version out on the ice to test it?
So that's the I would say the downside of having a long development process like that, is that the adaptability to the market reaction sometimes can be slow on some stuff, because let's say for the FT2 skate, we're just launching it 3 months ago now. Mm-hmm. If we're getting some feedback about it, that something we should change, it's hard to implement that feedback to the very next model, because the development process is long. And if we want to change something, we always got to make sure it's validated on the ice and in lab. So some small tweaks are easy to be done, but some bigger tweaks, of course, they take more time, because everything needs to be tested. Everything needs to be long time tested also. You don't want to test that only for 2 weeks and then you realize that after 3 months of usage, it's breaking. So you need to validate also a long-term use, a lot of usage, just to make sure that you got everything settled and everything figured out on the product. So that's that's the downside of product creation, but it's not only skates and it's not only CCM. It's pretty much every single product that's on the market. The feedback that you're getting until the next generation sometimes can be long to implement because of all the testing that are required to make sure that you're putting on the market a quality product.
But as you say, it's putting a quality product in the market. And one of the hallmarks we've heard from both pros and amateurs about the CCM gear is that there's consistency from pad to pad. You can bring a new one out after 6 months, and it's going to feel the same as the one that you were wearing earlier in the season. So kudos to you for that. So let's look specifically at the Jetspeed skate. And as I said earlier, it's not just your version of a no cowling skate. You've made some big innovations here. And the one-piece boot for starters. And I want to talk about what's different there, because I know a lot of our listeners hear one-piece boot and they say, nope, there's already been one out of there. True had a one-piece skate, but there was really more that boot cowling combination, wasn't it? Your one-piece boot is different. Can you tell us what that is and what makes it unique in the industry right now?
Yeah, so actually we use the Lastis technology to make our one-piece boot. So it's a very, very light one. So it's very important to realize how light the Jetspeed FT2 is and how light and how new this technology is. So we're using really new technologies, new ways to build skate, to be able to actually mold the skate 360 degrees. So that means that you got a closer fit to the holder. You got a closer fit also on the skate. So the fact that there's no outsole, there's no glue, there's no nails. Actually, it helps you wrap better under your foot, so you feel really connected to the skate with that one-piece technology. So I would say that's the biggest advantage of the one-piece is how close you are on your feet and how perfect that fit is as well.
I was just going to say, like, one thing that's just crazy, and I think it amazes every single person that, is lucky enough to have an inside glimpse into our factory, is seeing all of the additional steps that's required for a two-piece construction compared to a one-piece. All of the extra materials that need to go into it, all of the extra machinery to add those nails, to add the extra resin, the glue internally, and to see what the one-piece product is compared to that without all of that excess material, it's impressive when you get to actually see it in action.
Yep.
Okay, I think we have a vision here, a little bit of what that one-piece construction looks like, but could we just walk it back a second and tell us what that traditional two-piece construction looked like for you before you switched to the one-piece construction, just so people can really understand what's changed?
So when you build a traditional skate, so let's say a two-piece skate, you actually start with it looks like a sheet of paper. So it's a very, very flat piece of skin. And then you got to take the two extremities and then you try to wrap them. So in order to actually connect both of that flat piece of sheet, you need to actually use an outsole and something that's going to be under the skate to actually connect both parts of that sheet of material that you're using to mold the skate. So this is where the extra material and the extra actually steps in creating the skate comes from. Versus when you have a one-piece boot, that's already a one piece. So if you're looking at the skate, you can clearly see it's a 360-degree boot actually. So it already comes into a one piece. It already comes shaped, and all you got to do is actually, even with our custom mold process, so we can actually with our scanner, we can recreate your exact foot shape at the factory, and then we can mold that skate to your exact foot shape. So that actually is another main advantage of having a one-piece boot, is how close we can get in terms of fit and how precise we can get in terms of custom fit as well.
And we've seen that molding process in our review, and it really is impressive. We can see Kevin's bone spurs on the mold that you sent us a picture of even. Yeah. It's impressive. So Kaylie, Fred's the skate expert, but you're a goaltender. It's in your blood. You've tested these. Can you give us a little bit of an idea what the performance benefits are of the one-piece boot?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the biggest thing, just looking at the skate as a whole, and that includes the one piece and it includes the new holder system, is that when you look at goalies and how they play and just the evolution of goalie training that, you guys are experts in, it's evolved so much to focus on skating. Like, it amazes me when I follow all of these different coaches and programs on Instagram and seeing some of the drills that these goalies are doing that, I wasn't doing 10 or 15 years ago. And so we look at our skate and what we were able to do to cater to that. I think the biggest thing is going to be with the one-piece boot. You're not only getting such a great fit advantage, you're also getting that explosive energy transfer. By removing all of the extra materials that were underneath your foot, it's now a seamless connection. So you think about how, especially for a goalie, every millisecond counts. So if you can just get that extra advantage with every push that you make, every attempt to go cross crease, make a big save, make an easy save, you're going to get that from this type of construction. And I think that's really huge for any goalie.
Fantastic. And in the feature interview that we have to go along with this edition of the podcast, we're talking to Eric Comrie, and he began his career as a goaltender as a young kid at public skates, just skating for an hour without pucks. And today, at this time of year, he's just beginning to see pucks now. He's only been skating without pucks because it's such a foundation to his game, both as a youngster and as a pro. So it's an interesting tie-in there. So the one-piece boot obviously is a big step forward for you. Let's just talk a little bit more. We touched on the custom process, but you've got a few different levels of custom available. What do those look like, and what's a little bit different about your custom process?
Yeah, so we got actually two custom options to please the consumers. So we have the first one that we call the 3D custom mold. So what we're doing actually is we're taking a stock FT2 skate. So you could be in store and then you try the FT2 skate, and then you want it to be close to your foot. You want it to be perfectly molded to your foot. So you can use our 3D Fit Scanner application in store. We can scan your feet 360 degrees. So we really go get the tip of the toes, the ankle, and what's very important is that we're capturing the ankles. And that's very important because we've all seen people with pressure points at ankles, bone spurs and ankles. So it's very, very important to use actually the ankle. So when you're molding a 2D skate and you're using a last, so the last is actually the material that you're using to mold a skate. It has no ankle at all. So you cannot mold a skate without an ankle. So what our process allows us to do is actually capture 360 degree and 100% of your foot. So from the tip of the toes to your ankle. So we really capture every single thing, your arch and everything. So then you submit that order to the factory, and with the scan that you made on the iPad, we can reproduce that exact foot shape in our factory where we build our pro skate. So we take that new mold of your foot that we've created, and then we mold the FT2, the stock FT2 version, to your exact foot shape, and then we ship that back in 10 business days. So in 10 business days, you got perfectly fitted skates to your exact foot shape, molded out of your exact foot shape, shipped back to the store. So that's option number one. And then option number two is actually Total Custom Plus. So we can create the skate from A to Z according to your needs. So if you need extra stiffness, if you want advanced facing because you really like your skates when they wrap a lot around your foot, or you have a bigger foot volume and you need more facing options. So the facing option is actually at the eyelet level. So when you're adding material on top of the eyelets, so that actually when you're lacing your skates, you have more material on top of your foot and then you feel more wrap. So that's the facings. You can add, as I said, stiffness layers around, let's say, the eyelets. So you want them to be stiffer at certain area of your skate. You can do that. Let's say you want to oversize the toe cap. So you like when you have more spaces at the toe level. So you oversize your toe cap. You can pick your tongue. So we have 3 different tongue options. So you really build the skate as you wish it to be built. So and then again with that 3D Fit Scanner application, same process. So we scan your foot just like we do with the Pro. Actually, it's the exact same process as we do with the Pros. You scan the feet, and then we reproduce that exact foot shape at the factory, and then we mold the skates that we build according to your needs and according to your request, and then we mold that skate to your exact foot shape, and then we can ship that back in 4 weeks. So these are the two options. So you either have the 3D custom mold process where you take a stock FT2 skate. So let's say you try in the store the FT2 goalie skate. Love the fit, love everything, but you wanted to mold it to your foot. we can do that. And then if you want to change some things on your skate, you want to change your thong, you want to advance the facings, you want more wrap and stuff like that, and you can do that as well with our Total Custom Plus options.
It's basically like taking your eFlex 4 customizer and you finally get to apply it to a skate. So what more could you want, right, Dave?
Oh, incredible. I can, the number of hours we spend drooling over options with gear, and you've just given us one more possibility. Just before we finish up here, because we've been with you for a while here now, the holder, you've made a bit of a change to the holder. I think one of the great innovations is the removable blade that's been around for a while now, and your version of this, though, is a bit of a change because we've also seen them popping out on the ice in NHL games. What have you done different with your holder to try and deal with that situation, and also does that have a performance effect as well?
So as you mentioned, that's in fact a system that we've seen for a couple of years now. So we knew that by being second to the market with that type of holder, we had to come up with not only a great quick release holder, but the best quick release holder on the market. And the reason and the way we did that, it actually is with our blade lock system. So the blade lock system is actually what locks the blade inside the holder. So as you mentioned, we've all seen a blade pops out of the runner. We've even witnessed that in the playoffs not last year, but 2 years ago. Goalie went mad crazy to a referee trying to throw his steel at him. We all remember that scene, and that scene actually will not happen with our new XSG holder because we have that blade lock system. And that blade lock system, so whenever you put your hands on the FT2, just take a look at it. So the dial system that you see at the heel of the holder, just undial it and see how high quality and how rigid that screw that's locking the blade inside the holder is, and you'll understand right away why it's locking very, very securely and very tightly inside the holder. So that blade lock system is actually that mechanical lock, that screw that's actually holding the runner inside the holder, and that gives a tight blade to holder connection. And Kelly talked about the energy transfer of the one-piece boot, which is the major benefit of the one-piece boot. But by having also that tight blade to holder connection, by having that runner that's very, very securely inside your holder, you maximize your energy being transferred because your runner is not loose in your holder, so you're not losing any energy there. So it's very important to actually combine the best energy transfer boot to the best energy transfer holder, and then with that you got a perfect match.
And one thing that, full credit to our team in our lab, we have a ton of different testing options for impact. So what we can do for our masks, we can now start to apply to our skates as well. So, you can see those guns firing up to, I don't know, Fred, what are we testing at? Like
100 miles per hour.
Yeah. So 100 miles an hour, firing off that holder over and over and over again. So, I would hope that Shea Weber is never winding up and shooting at the bottom of my foot from like 6 feet out. But if it ever happens and I'm in that scenario, I have the confidence to know that everything's going to stay in one place. So it's cool to see that in action. And, we're just a small part of it. But even for our CCM morning hockey, we get to try out the skates, and the field testing team is always asking us, take any pictures, show us any puck marks, just to continue to validate on it as well. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you can take a look actually at CCM's hockey Instagram. We showed a slow motion video of the pucks at 100 miles per hour hitting the holders, and you can see how securely the runner remains inside the holder. So that's very cool. You can see all the slow mo action of the testing at 100 miles per hour being done on our holder, and great results.
Nice. We'll get a link to those videos up in the show notes for this. And I mean, we've had an opportunity to visit that lab, and it really is impressive that the work that's happening in there to know all the different divisions in that building that are coming together to make the next generation of gear for all of us is fantastic. We've gone over the design process. We've gone over the build process, some of the new innovations in the Jetspeed FT2. Is there anything we're missing?
Maybe the fact that that's actually the first time we're launching a Jetspeed skate. So that's so for 2019, if you're looking at the goalie skate we're launching, it has a one-piece boot. It has a new holder without cowling. It has a quick release holder, and that's our new Jetspeed line. So Jetspeed for player skates was very, very appreciated. That was one of our fastest growing line actually in the player skates. So we transferred all that momentum, all that lighthouse family into our goalie skates. And for us, Jetspeed is all about quickness. It's all about light skates. And when you're looking at light skates, just by changing the holder, we're shaving 150 grams out of that skate. And as we talked about the development process of a skate, we're always looking to ways to shed 3 to 5 grams on stuff here and there. So when you can save 150 grams per skate in just one easy way, actually by changing the holder, that's huge. So that's a huge weight saving that we have right there. So it's 150 grams that you just shed just by snapping your fingers when we're always fighting about grams. And then when you can shave that much weight, that's huge for us. So I would say 2019 skate for CCM, the FT2 goalie is the total package.
Exciting year. And when I hear about that 150 grams, I don't know, I'm just thinking back to childhood when we were doing skating drills with the entire team. And of course, the goalies are always coming up the rear. So I wish I had a pair of those skates on my feet way back then.
Yeah.
Thank you both very much. Listeners, get a chance to check out the CCM Jetspeed FT2. We've got the review on our site. We've actually got a little video there of that new holder mechanism working. You can hear the sound of that ratcheting in there that keeps it so secure. Lots of fantastic innovations. Of course, as always, you can also check it out with our friends at the Hockey Shop in Surrey, BC, who kindly sponsor this podcast and this gear segment every week. Fred, Kaylie, thank you so much from everybody.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Boy, somebody's going to be jealous as they listen to this episode. Well, actually, two people, Cam and Woody, are going to be sitting there going, "We have to raise our game," because Hutch, you did a great job there. You've heard about this skate, and you've talked to Woody about its performance. What fascinates you the most, or what are you looking forward to the most when you get your wheels?
Sure. Yeah, we saw it actually early on in development. More than a year ago, in the middle of the process. We've walked through that lab where they fire 100-mile-an-hour pucks at the skate to see how it holds up under development. And I was there when Woody took his for his first skate. And what fascinates me, the one-piece boot technology. I'm curious to see how that's going to be received and what that feels like. But got to be the fit. I mean, I don't know in my life that I've had a pair of skates that fit absolutely properly. And to see that custom molding process that they go through, would love to do that. Is it just a little weird that when I see that molded foot in the factory, that I imagine I wish they'd send that to me so I could keep that as well?
No, because you and I are, you know what? You and I are hockey hoarders. That's what you and I are. And we will take every little piece of memorabilia or experiences if they're physical and put them on our shelves. I see your bookshelf. I see your man cave, and you might be slightly more unique than I am.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of CCM pad cores sitting behind me too. Not the pad themselves, but that foam core at the heart of it that we used as part of a research project here, and that's just one piece going right back to my high school gear from Cooper as well. Yeah, it's fun to hoard those things, and I love the old stuff, but I love technology too, so I can't wait to get my feet in a set of those skates too.
I will say I have had the molded skate, and I've been using it for a little bit. Mine's the VH, and you will not believe the difference in just pure comfort. And I've always had feet that are sore coming off a practice or an ice session and or a game, and it's life changing. As Colby Armstrong says, he's not a goalie, but he uses that same technology, and he just says it's like wearing slippers. And I doubted that, and it's true. So I'm very excited for when you get a chance to put your feet in that, and I'm even more excited to see your mold and a signature of Hutch and the mold of his foot. And we there's a Halloween thing that we can do during that as well. Before we go, this has been a lot of fun, a lot of learning, a lot of exposure to the mind game. And do you think Eric Comrie is slightly more fragile but open mentally, or do you think he's just bluntly honest and everybody else doesn't share their true mental part of the game?
The latter. I think it's unfair to call him fragile for being honest. As I think I said to you earlier, when we met with John Stevenson and Pete Fry in Vancouver at their goalie mindset workshop, John was recounting a story of Braden Holtby, not so much a story, but experiences with Braden Holtby, saying, look, focus isn't about being completely on for all 60 minutes of the game. The reality is that in a good game, he's going to lose focus 10 times, and in a bad game, he's going to lose focus 45 times, or 25 times, whatever the number, doesn't matter. The reality is we all lose focus, and I think in a similar way, I think Eric sharing that he got nervous in certain times, feels pressure in certain times, I think that's real too. I think maybe there's the odd guy out there that really does never find himself nervous, but I'd be surprised if many NHL goaltenders could tell us that they didn't feel nervous at all the first time they skated out onto an NHL rink. Yeah, I think it's just open and honest, and I love to hear it. We need to hear more of that in the media, and I think we need to be a little easier on guys when they do share things with us so that they will continue to be open.
So fragile may not be the right word, but more vulnerable. I'm not sure what the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, like I said, to me it was just honesty, and I think it's what related him to us, because we're all going to feel the same thing. Gosh, I felt nervous in a beer league game before. It's crazy, but the results matter to all of us, I guess. So I'm sure Eric wouldn't feel nervous in my beer league games, though.
You felt nervous in a beer league game?
Well, yeah. I mean, come on. It's a championship game and a shootout. It matters.
Okay, Hutch. Yeah. I do too. So, yeah. But I thought I was the only one.
No. And I don't know if Woody gets nervous, but I know his team gets nervous when he plays.
Yeah. I also, there was one part of this podcast that I wanted to mention. The fact that you were there when Woody took his first strides in the Jetspeed and the skate that you talked about. I think that's such a wonderful just summary of your relationship. And you as you as the dad of the In Goal Radio podcast, and Woody and I as the kids. I just think it's beautiful that you were there for his first strides.
Oh, that's funny. That's an interesting analogy.
Is this the first time you and I have hosted the entire show without Woody?
I think it's the first time we've been solo. Yeah.
I think we should do it again.
Yeah, let's shut him out.
Just food for thought. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for joining us as well, you the listener, and everybody at CCM for taking the time and making the skate and the technology available for us to try out and pass along our thoughts and our experiences to you the listener, and also Eric Comrie for sharing his thoughts and being so honest, and it just makes you want to follow his career more. We root for him. We want goaltenders to have the best possible experiences, and those people that come on here and pass along their thoughts and what they've been through is just a great look behind the curtain. He's making strides. He's always had that little stumble when he first goes up a level, as you heard him say, and it's got to make you think that he's just ready to break through and become that brick wall that we've all waited for him to become in the National Hockey League. I'm Darren Millard, and you've been listening to In Goal Radio, the podcast presented by Source for Sports Surrey, thehockeyshop.com.